Hey, it's John Terry, the Black Belt Leader, and welcome to this Black Belt Leadership Master Your Life podcast. Did you know the height of the mountains you're going to summit in life is predicated by the amount of time you've put in preparing? That's what I want to talk about in this particular episode. You know, I recently finished an incredible book that I want to recommend that you go to Amazon and pick up. The book is On the Edge, and it's a fascinating look at leadership, sometimes contrarian in its views, by Allison Levine. The book, On the Edge, the author, Allison Levine. Now, I recently had a chance to spend an hour with Allison in a virtual setting, getting a chance to hear excerpts of her amazing story and to personally ask her some questions about what she learned on the mountain and other mountains she's climbed around the world. It's quite an honor. But for those of you who don't yet know who Allison Levine is, let me tell you just a little bit of her story. She is an incredible woman who has summited multiple 8,000-meter mountains all over the world, including Mount Everest. She served as team captain of the first American women's Everest expedition, and she's climbed some of the world's tallest peaks, get this, with a medical condition that makes her more susceptible to frostbite. Now, get what I just said. A woman whose body is more prone to the negative, debilitating effects of cold. And what is she doing? She's scaling some of the tallest, most challenging mountains on the planet, facing temperatures well below zero, climbing sheer walls of solid ice, and enduring biting wind gusts of more than 50 to 70 miles an hour. Now, in this book, On the Edge, there's some great leadership lessons that any black belt leader should want to learn. But I want to touch on one in today's podcast. Now, Allison, if you're listening, thanks for the ride. It was a great read. When you're climbing Mount Everest, the initial ascent into Camp 1, which is step 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, and then you make it for the summit. The initial ascent to Camp 1 takes you through the Khumbu Icefall. Now, that's located at the head of the Khumbu Glacier. You can go to YouTube after the podcast is over and you can query Khumbu Icefall. That's Khumbu, Khumbu Icefall. And you can actually watch climbers traverse this dangerous section of the climb. Now, massive chunks of ice, some 65 feet or more in size. Imagine a chunk of ice the size of a small house moving at a rate, get this, 3 to 4 feet a day. It makes this particular section of the climb one of the most dangerous on Everest. Crevices are common as they are in any glacier. And given the fact that this landscape is constantly moving and changing 3 to 4 feet a day, it's a very unstable place and no one wants to be there for any longer than possible. I learned from Allison that an experienced climber can navigate this Khumbu Icefall region in just a few hours. But an inexperienced or non-altitude acclimatized climber can take 10 to 12 hours, up to half a day, to successfully and safely navigate the icefall and actually make it to Camp 1. Oh, by the way, did I mention they're climbing at 17,999 feet? The air's a little thin in addition to it being super cold. Now, because crevices are everywhere, Sherpas go in advance and they lay out aluminum ladders. The climbers can use these to walk across the crevices they can't leap across on their own. But keep in mind that as these ladders are there and the landscape is constantly moving and shifting, these ladders can quickly become unstable. Add to that falling chunks of ice. Literally, think about that. The size of a school bus or a small house could literally crush a climber. These ice flows and these falling chunks of ice can trigger avalanches that can bury climbers in snow and ice. It's a very inhospitable place to be from anyone who's been there that has lived to tell the tale. And most climbers who want to traverse this dangerous section of the climb do so well before sunrise. Why? Because they hope the freezing temperature will slow the progression of the ice as this glacier relentlessly pushes itself and these massive bus-sized chunks of ice down the side of Everest. Now, at this point, you may be saying, okay, John, great story. That's interesting. Where's the leadership lesson? One word: preparation. Upon arriving at base camp, a prudent climber begins training with their assigned team members to both acclimatize to the altitude, as well as rehearsing the all-important climbing, avalanche, and crevice fall survival skills they're going to need as they're making the climb to the top. They're also going to practice navigating their way with their croupons, those metal clips they put on the bottom of their shoes to grab the ice. They're going to practice navigating these aluminum ladders so they can span these ever-changing, ever-moving crevices. And in the event they slip, they want to make sure they minimize injury and that they don't die due to a fall. Now, prior to coming to Mount Everest, these climbers have trained for months, many for years, and some for decades in preparation for arriving at base camp and getting ready for a 2-month journey to take on Mount Everest. Equipment has to be purchased. Supplies have to be acquisitioned. Climbers have to be physically, mentally, and emotionally prepared for the rigors of climbing the world's tallest mountain. Preparation. Basketball great John Wooden said this: when opportunity knocks, it's too late to prepare. Ask any world-class athlete or anyone who has become incredibly successful in life, and here's what they're going to tell you. Unspectacular preparation always precedes a spectacular gold medal performance. The same is true for anyone in a leadership position. Now, you and I, we're never going to know when we're going to be called upon to rise to the next level of greatness in our lives, to summit our own Mount Everest. That's why daily preparation, daily focusing on becoming a better version of ourselves than we were the day before, is so essential for you and I to be able to rise to the challenge and to summit the mountain that is before us. That means you not only work at what you're good at, but you also work on improving the other necessary skills that are needed not only to get to world-class status, to take on the mountain, but to stay there once you get there. Just as a climber has to have a very versatile skill set to respond, to adapt, and to rise to the challenge that he or she is going to face on the mountain, you too, as a leader, must continually cultivate a versatile skill set of your own. So you're going to be prepared to keep moving, even in the midst of your own icefall that you may be facing at the moment. Now, preparation means you're also going to be willing to not settle for good enough. Allison says in her book, and she said it during the time we were together in the virtual room, complacency can kill you on the mountain. And she backs that claim up with story after story of experienced climbers who settled for good enough, leaned back on prior experiencing, and stopped becoming a better version of themselves, only to lose their life on the mountain. You know, when we get far too comfortable doing things the same way we've always done them, we tend to stop pursuing excellence, and we then make our decisions in our mind, good enough is okay. But on the mountain, good enough can be deadly. And in business, whether you realize it or not, it can be just as deadly. Now, what do I mean by that? When you stop serving your clients at the highest level, when you fail to create an exceptional experience that keeps them coming back and wanting more, you've essentially killed your business's future income, because your clients and your customers are going to go elsewhere. When you stop innovating, when you stop creating, when you stop improving your product, your service, and how you're treating your customers, you've essentially stopped climbing the mountain and you've settled for good enough. Now you've exposed yourself to the elements of increased competition and reduced market share, and you're beginning to experience frostbite in your business. Now remember, you're climbing at altitude, and if you don't keep moving, you're going to freeze to death. Now, I said it at the opening, and I'm going to say it here at the close. The height of the mountain you're going to summit in life is predicated on the amount of time you've put in training, preparing, and getting ready. How high do you want to climb? And what action steps and what preparation do you need to take starting now to prepare to get you to the top? I'm John Terry, the Black Belt Leader. Thanks for joining me, and have a great day.